Last week I picked up the veteran Sherman S and had the pleasure of chatting with Steve, who is the passionate and knowledgeable founder of E-Riderz. We discuss E-Riderz' philosophy of care and ethos, favourite wheels, EUC growth in Australia, quality control and safety. Enjoy this cosy chat that will be perfect for background listening. Cheers. All right, thanks for chatting with me today, Steve. Could you tell me a bit about your history with PVs or EUCs?
No problems. Thanks for coming in today. E-Riderz, I basically started E-Riderz as a, out of office at home with a storage on the side 3 to 4 years ago, supplying electric unicycles, which was what I was most passionate about, just due to the awe factor of them. But I did also dabble in some Segway units, like other self-balancing devices and things like that early on. Eventually settled into just wanting to focus on electric unicycles because that's what we just love.
Yeah, I can understand that passion for sure. So what's your current wheel that you're riding?
Oh gosh, I'm fortunate that we ride every wheel that we've got. We've got 25 models in our shop here, and we like to have our team basically understand each model, what it's good for, what it's not, how it performs, so that we can explain it to customers that are wanting to get started. So it changes all the time, basically. Probably I've ridden all of them, but we have a couple of favorites for the shop run down to the cafe for lunch and things. So at the moment, those wheels are the T4, the suspension unit. It's a nice little 16-inch wheel. And also we have a 16X that we jump on. We have the Master, and we have an S22 shop wheel at the moment. And we also have a little 16S and 14D that we often use on our for people to try out, and we don't tend to go down the shops though. That's the one that we sort of zoom around in the shop on.
Yeah, you don't want a big wheel for that.
No, so we love just zipping around on the little wheels in shop, and then when we go riding to the shops and others, we tend to use the 16 and 18 and 20-inch wheels. Yeah.
Speaking of learning to ride, how do you help the community learn to ride?
Yeah, so basically here at our headquarters, we hold a Learn to Ride electric unicycle session every 2 to 3 weeks. People can book in and come along, and we've got an assortment of wheels that we find, like the V8F from InMotion, a 14D, a 16S from Kingsong, an 18L, and a 16X. And they tend to be the 5 or 6 wheels that we have in our little assortment of different sizes for people to try, with different thicknesses of tire and different sizes of diameter, so that way taller people, shorter people, they can all try different size wheels and get a feel for what suits them best. We start with like a 14-inch wheel, and then we kind of build them up after they start to get familiar with it throughout the learning session, which takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. And we find that the majority of people, by the end of that sort of 3-hour session, are up and riding and doing a few basic loops of our park outside. And and we basically ride beside them, holding their hand, and get them confident, because we find that a lot of it is after we've gotten the basic drills of how to stand on it, where to position your feet. A lot of it is confidence. A lot of it is getting the confidence to go from standstill to the speed at where the wheel just naturally stops sort of wanting to fall left or right. Once you get to that speed of like 6-7 kilometers an hour, it all just sort of falls into place and stays upright. And then once we get people to that stage, we then basically ride beside them and do laps outside until they can feel like they can let go and do that themselves. But yeah, we teach. We have some kids occasionally, but we've sort of taught maybe 7 or 8 this year of 70-year-olds that have picked it up in 1 or 2 sessions, and then everyone in between. but yeah, so it just shows that like everyone can learn.
Yeah,
And
it's very accessible,
yeah.
and it's great that you're just making that on-ramp so much more easier.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hurdle. So people like see them and go, well, gosh, that's amazing, but I could never do it. And we're like, no, come along. We'll hold a session and you can just jump on our wheels. We'll give you some drills, teach you the basics. And yeah, 80% of the time people are rolling by the end of that first session, and they even come back again just to practice further or before they make their decision on the wheel they often want.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And now not everyone's very mechanically inclined and can be concerned about the reliability. So how can you help ease people's concerns?
Yeah, sure. So as a distributor of all the big brands of electric unicycles, In Motion, Kingsong, Pagoda, Leaper-Kim for the veteran range, all the models that we stock, which is around 25 or 26 different models at the moment, we keep all the parts on hand here in our headquarters here. We do servicing and maintenance of those. We keep certain things can be done by wheel owners themselves, such as changing a tire or tube. There are some good videos out there that sort of explain the disassembly, reassembly process, and we keep all those parts on hand to be able to, let people do that themselves. But we also offer the service of them being able to bring it in, and for an hour's labour charge, we do it for them. And basically, while learning, you can sometimes damage your wheel, scuff it up a bit, or, so we keep all the shells, all the pedals, all the lights and main boards and motors for every model. And so basically you sort of shouldn't be able, like if you ever run into a problem with the unit, we'll have the parts available and be able to either advise you how to replace the part, or we can replace the part here in our workshop.
I've been really impressed. I had that issue with my V11 headlight and I had the part and then repaired within 4 days. So I was just very pleased with that turnaround.
Yeah, that's it. Like, sometimes there's problems that need a little bit of troubleshooting, but ultimately we have chats going every day with the manufacturers, their engineers. So we're able to coordinate with In Motion, ask them a few questions, tell them what we've seen, and then narrow it in on a couple of options. And that was why we were able to get that headlight assembly out to you with the power switch to change over, and basic instructions on how to put it on, and good to go again. We understand that these wheels have shifted from just being like a toy and a recreational device as they were maybe 6-7 years ago, and it's becoming a personal mobility device, as they often call them now in the legislation, PMDs, or personal electric vehicle. People are relying on them because they are so versatile, and so the range that you can get from an electric unicycle can be anywhere from sort of 40 kilometers in the lowest size models all the way up to like 150, 200 kilometers. So we understand that people are using those instead of their vehicles, which is great because it's such a nice way to get around and not have to sit in like on the roads, stressed, and all those other things that come with driving and parking. So yeah, that's why we've dedicated so much into having spare parts on hand, having all the workshop. We can do bearing changes. We've got we do rim changes if someone damages their rim. All these sorts of services aren't sort of things that we're commonly supported from the manufacturer. That's something that we've invested in the tools and the know-how to be able to do, and pretty much the only place in Australia that will actually do those sorts of jobs and repairs.
Yeah, it makes such a difference, and that's why I hammer home to support your local shop. Then they'll hopefully look after you as well.
Exactly. We invest a lot to be able to hold the parts. It adds up a lot. There's potentially 50, 60 odd parts sometimes for different models, and we'll even strip back units, where needed if it's an odd part that we don't have and needs to get someone out of trouble. So we've done a lot of that sort of thing in the past, and basically we'll be supporting our units. In future, we may need to narrow our range a little bit further so that we can try and accommodate the growing number of wheels out there, so that that we've always got the parts on hand, because we've managed to get by with a set amount. But now that the community is growing, it might be 1-2 years later, and all of a sudden they'll need an odd part, and we basically want to sort of make sure that we've got enough parts to be able to cater for everybody's needs in the next few years.
Yeah, well, speaking of growing community, what has been your experience with the growth here in Queensland or Australia in general?
Yeah, so with obviously with like being able to hold learn to ride sessions, and also group rides that we sort of host to allow people to sort of come together and do a nice ride together. It makes for quite a sight at night, riding around the city with all the lights on and everyone riding together. So it's nice to be able to, like, people call out to us and ask us like, oh, what's that? How do I get on one of those? So that sort of like activity helps to for local people in Brisbane to see. But we also,
that exposure just carries on so importantly.
That's right. So we do find that word of mouth from our riders, because they use the wheels to get to work, they use it for recreation, they ride to the bay, they go to the city, they're basically always out there. They're like a billboard for amazing technology of personal transportation. So we find that, as time goes by, our riders naturally love to tell people in the community about their amazing devices. So there's that. But we also have community groups that we've sort of set up or helped to manage on Facebook, like the EUC Community Australia group, where we have, I think, maybe 700 members or something now across Australia that are all EUC riders. And then we also have some local groups like the Brisbane one, and then there's been a few more groups throughout Australia in the different locations, like Canberra ACT, Melbourne EUC, Perth EUC, SA, South Australia group of skate and EUC riders. And so it's great. The community is really sort of getting together, joining together to go on rides, and also supporting each other for getting new people in.
That's exactly right. My experience too is that it's such a welcoming and excellent community to be a part of, and that's why I'm so active on the groups, chats, and that sort of thing.
I've seen your content.
Yeah,
it's great. We love seeing people like out there and talking about the technology and the advantages, because it's such a foreign thing when people first see it for the first time, that they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. That looks amazing. In another life maybe, but no, they just don't realise that it's so accessible for everybody, and so fun to just ride hands-free. It's such a different experience than just sort of handlebarring it. And they can pretty much ride anywhere, so you're able to travel out, do trails, ride cities, tracks, wherever.
Excellent. And of course there is some inherent risk, and it looks like you carry a range of accessories to look after.
So over the last sort of
we just changed over the cameras, and now we carry on about the protective gear.
Yes, so over the last 2 years we've been increasing our range of protective gear and other riding gear that's useful for our riders. We've chosen a selection of Bell, Liat and Fox helmets, which are really popular for our riders. Knee guards, elbow guards, wrist guards are the three kind of popular product ranges. We've also got specific products that are useful for electric unicycle riders, such as gloves that allow you to access your phone while giving you wrist protection. So we have options like that that we've specifically sourced for our electric unicycle riders. But we've been working now with Liat and Bell and Fox and O'Neill for a good sort of year and a half or so now. And as you can see, along with some of our other select products like the .65 Bobblebee range, which has hard shell protection and back protection for our riders. Really handy for motorcycle and electric unicycle and scooter riders.
Yeah, that's personally what I use, and I feel very protected with it, and yeah, it's a bit more specialized gear than what you'd normally find, so it's good that you've...
It's a selection based
it.
on what we found works well for our types of riders, because there isn't often a specific electric unicycle designed product, although there is in a couple of cases like the gyro rider gloves. But what we've done is we've had to borrow from some of the other industries like motocross, motorcycle, road, mountain biking, and so forth. So we've kind of taken the best of each of those areas and yeah, selectively supply those products so that we have also like body armor and other things and other backpacks that include back protection or convenience for our riders, because it's great to be able to drink while out riding on the trails without, especially when, you know, you can do a bit of everything while on the wheel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now if we could talk a bit more about some of the exciting new wheels that are coming out. So
yes. Yeah. So there's been quite an influx of new wheels in the last 6 months. We have a whole new range from Pagoda, which so far we've enjoyed the T4, which is the new 16-inch suspension wheel. The Master is another high performance kind of category of wheel in the 18-inch. It's similar to the T4, but we kind of have a preference just towards the suspension and the feel of the T4 over the Master. But the Master certainly has a bigger capacity, higher voltage. So that's quite a nice performance wheel, but for our purposes, we tend to find that just jumping on the T4 is nice and fun and has enough range for what we want to do with it. We have some amazing new wheels that are just coming out, such as the InMotion V13 that's currently in production in the InMotion factories right now.
And do you have an expected delivery date for the V13?
So they are currently producing a batch, and they will be shipping out to the dealers around the world right now and in the next couple of weeks. So we plan on bringing our V13 stock in pretty much straight away as soon as they're available. So we're expecting end of January for arrival based on the sea freight. And then obviously another wheel that's just come, that's beat the V13 in arrival, is the veteran Sherman S suspension, which you'll know a little bit about.
Yeah, that's the one I'm excited about.
Which we'll talk about.
So what are your initial impressions on the Sherman S?
The Sherman S looks like a really quality build. We obviously haven't had much experience with it since it's just arrived sort of 24 hours ago or so, but we've been unboxing them all, checking the wheels over, and so far we've been pleased with what we've found so far. The quality of the outer shell and the handles, everything has the sort of alloy metal feel about it rather than the more plastic outer shell based of the earlier Leaper-Kim models and most of the other electric unicycle models. So yeah, it's got a real sort of motorcycle quality feel about it. And it looks sweet. So, yeah, it's got the looks as well.
It's really could be the complete.
The suspension feels, it's different than the other suspension models that we've sort of worked with so far. So we're really excited to get out and have some rides and get some feedback from our customers and the community.
Absolutely, looking to put some miles on it for sure over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I just latched onto when you said you pulled the wheels out and looked them over, because I know a lot of dealers skip this step. Could you just elaborate on your process?
So we found over the years that a lot of boxes come, for example, the brand 9bot, they come all like shrink wrapped, sort of ready to open at the customer's end when they arrive. And we did have some dealings with 9bot earlier on as well. But what we sort of decided for ourselves was that there was too many failures or little issues that have slipped through QC, or preventing, finding a damaged product or a product that's not up to date firmware wise or similar by the time it arrives to the customer. So we basically take 15 minutes or longer, depending on the wheel, checking each one over and looking for all the things that could go wrong based on our experiences, but also a set list that we have a checklist for and we go through, checking things like that the firmware's up to date, that it will connect properly to Bluetooth, that the pedals are all working properly, and the handles, for example, checking the tire pressure to make sure that it's not too low or even too high in some instances. If it's a type of wheel that's often a popular first wheel, we make sure that they're not like exploding with the pressure, because it makes it harder for a first-time rider to do that. But we also want to make sure that they're not too low, because people can, if they're inexperienced, they might not pump it up enough, and then they might end up sort of pinching a tube, for example, if they hit a sharp kind of edge on a curb or something. So those sorts of things. Also checking the alignment of the tire and various factors like that, because we perform that for every wheel before it goes out, making sure. Or the other thing is that sometimes the manufacturers don't put the right power cables in, and things are missing or things are damaged in transit and so forth. So yeah, we basically check every wheel over, make sure that we have a feel for the consistency and what's sort of what we need to look for. If we come across a particular problem in one, we make sure we check for that in the others.
Yeah, and that just greatly improves the customer experience and gives them a
That's right.
smooth sailing.
It's actually, I think everyone will be surprised with how many wheels we end up putting aside that don't meet our own personal QC. We've gone through, I think our blackest day of QCing wheels was, we went through 6 different wheels in a row that we put aside, and they were a mix of different wheels. It was just like the worst combination of wheels that had been shipped to us from different brands all at the same time. And yeah, there was just little things about each of them that we just put them aside, and that could have been 6 customers out there with those wheels if they'd bought from somewhere online that doesn't check them. And yeah, we've avoided that problem by putting that one aside, repairing it or fixing whatever the issue was, and and sending out a new one for the customer.
That's excellent. I think that's very important, because that can really degrade the experience, and because it's such a new industry, hobby, sport, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's just going to help it grow and move forward.
Yeah, it gives people the confidence to know that they're going to be looked after. We filter out a lot of issues before they even come out. And if something slips through, for example, we also test the chargers with the unit for everyone. Occasionally, just strangely, we even find that after we've tested the charger, and then by the time it gets to the customer, they then plug it in and something goes wrong with the charger. But we filter that out quite a lot before it gets to the customer. So it's another little thing that we find just due to fluctuations of different power, dirty power, other things around Australia, that sometimes what we feel the need, we always check them here now, and we leave them to increase to a certain like at least 5% to try and check that it's actually balanced, that it's charging consistently. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's great news to hear, and really appreciate your time, Steve. And
No worries, Jonathan.
thanks so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for your time.